Well, I like this model. Let's do this so we can kind of get it. Yeah. And I can point with you. What I like about this, right, is we start out big. And then we take this section right here that they've done in green and blow it up, right, because that would be microscopic. Remember, we couldn't see the nephrons when we dissected the kidney, right? We blow that up and look at this. And then we blow up one of the glomeruli, right, the glomerulus in here, and look at that. So that's what they've done on here. Okay, so remember the very outer layer is the capsule, right? And then as we go in, what's this one?
Cortex.
Cortex. What gives it that striated appearance? Those collecting tubules. All right. So, cortex, medulla. Medulla is striated because of the collecting tubules. So what that means, you guys, is that the nephrons, all of those millions of nephrons, are out here in the cortex. All right. Their loop of Henle can hang down into the medulla. It doesn't have to, but it can. But really what's making it most of the medulla are the collecting tubules. And then they, right, are draining the distal tubule, whatever is going to be secreted here, right? So the distal tubules dump into the collecting tubule. We'll come back to that. That empties into, what's this first area called? Minor first, right? Minor calyx. The minors come together to give us a major calyx, and then the majors all come together to give us the renal pelvis, right here. And then the renal pelvis comes down and becomes the, or empties into the ureter, right? So let's jump over here and let's look at this in more detail, because also all of these little balls, they look like little red balls, those are supposed to be the glomerulus. These are supposed to be that.
Okay.
I know it looks weird, huh, because it's so out of context. So here, we're not looking at the inside yet, but you know there's a capillary system in here. And so this is this a little bit bigger, and then this even bigger. Okay. They did not show you the peritubular capillaries around the tube. So that's what this net kind of is here, in a sense. If that capillary system was there, it would be laying over and around this. Remember that in the picture in your book? So we have Bowman's capsule with the glomerular capillary inside. The very first part of the tubule is what? What's this part of the tubule called? Closest to the glomerulus. Starts with a P. You guys know this.
What?
Proximal tubule, right? And then it becomes what? You heard me say it already? Loop of Henle, very good. And then loop of Henle becomes distal, and the distal tubule dumps into the collecting duct. Very good, right? And then we're back to our calyxes and the pelvis. So if we look at the glomerulus in more detail, because I want you to see this capillary system in here, because remember it's different than any other capillaries in our body. What they could have done better on this is made the afferent bigger than the efferent artery, right? That's bringing the blood in and taking the blood out, because that's what slows this down and greatly increases the blood pressure. Much, much higher than in the rest of our body. And what that does is it forces filtrate in between these specialized cells. Do you remember what these are called? Podocytes. Remember poto means foot? And they send out all these little false feet, so to speak, and these extensions. Right, of their membrane. Wherever there's podocyte or its membrane, nothing can get through. So what's cool about this is these guys kind of intertwine and overlap and create these little areas in between where there is no podocyte, and that's called the filtration slit. And those are important because it prevents large things from being filtered out, like proteins that we want to stay in our blood, right? We still lose some useful things, and so that's why we have this tubule system that I'll come back to in just a second. But this is helping us keep some things in that we don't need to filter out anyways, like the proteins in our blood that we use for things like clotting. So this should be bigger. So the blood comes in and goes out. No gas exchange, right? This is still red. No gas exchange. The filtrate, which is mostly plasma, but you know there's water. I mean, water is what makes up most of the plasma, right? There's going to be some ions in there, potentially amino acids that we could use later on, right? And that ends up in the filtrate. And that goes then into here, which this is proximal tubule, you guys. So this is that green part right there. And then it continues on through the rest of the tube system, right? This is a piece of distal tubule. I know it looks weird, but let me see. Distal kind of, this is a better shot right here. Distal kind of comes back and wraps around by the glomerulus. Remember, this is where the macula densa is. That regulates, these specialized epithelial cells here, the macula densa, regulate solute concentrations in the filtrate. If there's too much solute still, it affects the blood pressure, right? Because remember, water follows the solute concentration. So this is part of how we control water movement in and out of this tubule system and back into the bloodstream to maintain blood pressure, right? And blood volume then. So if we come back now to the proximal tubule, remember the proximal tubule is where most reabsorption occurs. Any of those amino acids that slipped out through here, any water that we can get back, sodium, chloride, potassium, any of those ions that were small enough to slip through with the toxins that we're trying to get rid of, we can reabsorb here in the proximal tubule. We can really reabsorb it anywhere, but remember the proximal tubule is really specialized for reabsorption because it's got a lot of microvilli, right? And there's a little bit of microvilli in the rest of this guy, but mostly here. So we're going to try to get it back into our bloodstream right away. Remember, there's a capillary out here too. So we got a double capillary system, right? We got the glomerular capillary here, and then this becomes the peritubular capillary out around the tubes. That's where gas exchange occurs for the actual kidney cells, you know what I mean, for these cells so that they can get oxygen and they can get rid of their waste products. So if you look at the standing kidney alone, you can name all the same parts on it. It's just stuff's a little different color, right? But this is the only model I have, you guys, that shows you the entire tubule system, right, with the collecting duct, and then the glomerulus, which looks just like the picture in our book, which is pretty cool. So you will see this on the lab practical. And I'll probably use the standing one too. So on this, I'll probably ask questions about these and then use the standing one just to get people moving, you know what I mean, so that I don't clog you guys all up at one station. So make sure you see the standing one too, just because stuff is different colors. But if you have a picture of that, you're going to do fine on the standing one also. Do you want to go over this too?
Sure.
Because you don't have the key
Yeah,
here.
go for it.
Well, on this one, these are the mammary glands. I wish they would have made them a different color because it looks like fat. Right? I mean, you know, you can tell it's not the fat, but they shouldn't have made it yellow. At any rate, the 857 out here, nice numbers, huh? Well, you know what it is? It's the torso. And so they go through every single part and number it, so that's why the numbers are so high. So fat here, this is fat too. Why did they change the color of it? I don't know. Okay, so mammary glands, lactiferous ducts. Remember on the picture and in your book it calls these wider areas of sinuses? Just know it's lactiferous duct, right? And then we got some lymph here. And here is the body wall, so to speak, pec major. And pec minor is in there too. That's all on this. That's all. Oh, nipple, right? Areola. Here's what I might ask you though, besides the structure, right? What hormone triggers these guys to produce milk? Prolactin, very good. PRL, remember, is the abbreviation of prolactin. Oxytocin does what here?
The milk
causes the ducts to contract to help push the milk down. And along then with the suckling action of the baby, right? Very good. That's it on this. Pretty straightforward.